Win it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Are you okay?
In today's video, I'm going to attempt to answer a burning question. What is the best place to farm or homestead in the United States? But before I dive into the answer, there are 5 key questions that I need to unravel as we venture through this agricultural odyssey. Number 1, how does climate shape your farming practices? Number 2, what kind of animals thrive in different regions? Number 3, how does land cost affect your homesteading dreams? Number 4, can you farm year-round or will you be beaten down by the seasons? Number 5, and most intriguingly, what hidden gem states offer the best of all worlds?
As you guys can probably tell, I'm not at the farm today. I'm actually somewhere in Tennessee. I think it's like outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm actually in the middle of trying to find a farm, but I actually think I'm a little bit lost and I'm looking for some directions here. So stop at this gas station. But this will not be a video at the farm today, or at least my usual farm. Unfortunately, this coffee shop is closed on Mondays and I'm shooting this video on a Monday.
Since I was gonna be in Tennessee for the next few days, I decided to go visit my friend Ann of Ann of All Trades and see her farm. She lives just outside of Nashville, and I figured I'd stop in and say hello. As I drove up to Ann's farm, it struck me how different her landscape was from my own patch of heaven up in northern Vermont. The Tennessee heat is nothing to scoff at. It's hot, really hot, especially in the summer. But here on Ann's farm, she really has things figured out and how to adapt to the climate that she's in terms of her animal selection as well as her animal management practices. So what does all of this mean when contrasted with my farm in the cooler climates of Vermont? Well, it's a lot like comparing apples and oranges, or in my case, maybe apples to peaches.
All right, let me show you something. Here you have wet, here you have dry, here you have hot, here you have cold. And now if you're thinking about any type of farming, homesteading, or pretty much any type of lifestyle where you have to work significantly outdoors, these dimensions are crazy important. Because when I think about the climate I live in Vermont, it's somewhere here where we're pretty cold, we're not like Antarctica, and we're pretty wet, where we're not like the Pacific Northwest, but we also have our temperates. And so our extremes though, you know, we can get winter that's negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and we can get a summer that's usually we're getting like about an 80-degree day, maybe a 75-degree day. That's what I get, and I get, you know, pretty heavy regular rainfalls. Really extreme rainfalls if I'm thinking about what's happened this summer. And that has me running my farm in a very specific way. But then when I think about my friend Ann, and she's in Tennessee, where she's pretty wet and she's pretty hot, man, she's probably a little bit less rainfall than I am, but she's definitely a lot probably about relatively the same distance from cold to hot than I am from cold to hot, or hot to cold, or something along those lines. I don't know, I'm getting confused myself with this whole diagram shtick.
All right, if metaphors are too complicated for you, let me explain it.
Because of even the difference in climate, the farms around here are historically very different than our farms in Vermont. So for example, as you guys are well aware, my farm is very close to the road. But if I look at where Ann's farm's set up, and really all the farms around here, they're pretty far set back. A big part of that reason is because when our farm was getting set up in 1835, they wanted to be as close to their neighbors as possible, and they had to deal with big snowfalls that could get them stuck. And it's much easier to move your milk and get to the store if you only have to go about 25 feet to get to the road, versus where a lot of the farms here are set back about 500 feet. That makes a big difference, and that means that the farms are set up differently. And then the other historical reason for what climate has done for how folks are farming is you start to look at the different crops and the different things that you do and how you manage your animal infrastructure. All of those things lead you to farming drastically different as well.
I adjusted the way that I live. Basically, in a cold climate, like all winter, you're trying to stay warm, you're spending more time in the house and all that stuff. But here, you do all of your outside projects, your like real manual labor stuff outside during the winter. And then during the summer, it's super pleasant from like 5 a.m. to like 9:30 in the morning here. And then it's super pleasant again from 6 until 11. Basically, you can be outside 12 months a year here. You just have to do it really, really carefully.
Yeah, the winter months, I'm sitting by the fire, I'm doing a writing project. Like that's like when I'm planning on doing that type of work, versus like every hour of the day in the summer, it's like, make it, do it, go, run. Like you've got so much you gotta do. And yeah, here, like this is like your chill time. I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, if I plan my days properly and I can spend my 9 to 5 sitting at my desk in the AC in here, you get the best of both worlds, because it's sunny, it's beautiful. You're looking outside, but it's sunny and beautiful, and you can look outside and enjoy it, but you're not feeling like you're missing out. Living in Washington, we had 20 8 bluebird days a year, so like no clouds and only sun. And every time, like when I was working in corporate, like I would be sitting at my desk and on a sunny day and I'd be like 27, 26, 25. And it was like, it made my life so much more miserable because I was, at any time you had any like inkling the sun might be out, it was like this like urge to be outside doing the stuff that you wanted to do. And here I'm like, I'm like, it's gonna be sunny again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Like I can be in here and like drink my ice water, sit by my AC, read and research to my heart's content, and also get some vitamin D in the process.
So one of the things I'm struggling with is, do I add more cattle, do I add sheep, or do I get into dairy cattle? Ooh. And the thing that I'm like most scared of is the initial milkings and dealing with all that and doing that in the routine, I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
But I know like I hate washing dishes. I know that like tedious daily tasks are the things that actually make me hate something. And it feels like with dairy, there's so much of that.
To me, the answer to all of those things is like, okay, then what's the thing that's causing the problem? And for actually most things, it's like, if it is a business, it's probably gonna cause the problem. And I'll unpack that a little bit. But basically, I do a raw dairy partnership with my friend. I'm actually taking a break from it right now. And actually, it's during this break that I started, instead of taking multiple cows into the milking stanchion every single day, like using the milking machines, like getting the daily milk orders ready, having to wash all those dishes and everything. If it's just for me and for my personal use, I can milk one cow in the middle of the field into a bucket, and then I get to choose what to do with that bucket. If I feel like making cheese or butter or whatever else, I can take it up, then I like pour it into my filter, rinse everything with hot water, and then it's good. I'm really into sanitation like around my farm, so like I'm not going to deal with as much like issues with like contamination as people who might have their animals in closer quarters and all that stuff. So like that bucket system works for me. If I don't want to make butter or cheese, that's why I have pigs. So then I can take that same bucket and dump it in with the pigs, and then literally not even have to think about it again until the next day. I also do a thing called calf sharing. So if I need to go away for a couple days or something and break that milking routine, so instead of taking the calf, separating it from its mom during the night and then milking her out in the morning, I can just leave the mom and the calf together, and he'll relieve all of that milking pressure, and I can be gone for up to 4 or 5 days without actually negatively affecting the production. Granted, I have to plan around different, like we don't want to do that, the peak milk production and things like that, but like if we're milking for basically the better part of a year, after the first 2 months, I could do that calf sharing thing for the next 7 months.
So like as an experiment, it sounds like it works for you, but as like a long-term like business and doing something at scale, which has like milking machines that need to be cleaned and like temperatures targets that have to be set and like all of the things that come with it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's not for me.
It's also really not for me. What I've realized, and this is part of the break that I've taken, is that I'm really into raising the cows, raising the calves for the dairy, and having one animal that I'm milking every day for my personal and for my farm use. Beyond that, I'm doing a ton of stuff to support the business, but I don't then have to take part in the day-to-day business. I know your tendency to get into things as businesses because I share that gene. And I would say that aspect of it, I would not recommend at all, because there's so many dishes, there's so much, like, I don't know what laws are like where you're at, but like raw milk especially is like very closely monitored. It's like a whole thing, but yeah. But should you get into the milk business, please do not. I care about you too much to let you do that.
Dairy cow, a science project only.
So Anne has told me that she is building a pond using pigs, and I have no freaking idea how this works. So Anne, can you show me how this works?
All right, well, hopefully it will work. But we've got this hole in our ground that has been here since we moved in. And you know, when it's rainy, it fills with water and that's a whole thing. But when it's not, it's an eyesore and a mosquito pit and nothing like what we actually want to have around. So an old timer told me that I should just stick some hogs on it. At the time, I was like, okay, sounds good. When I started learning about remineralizing my soil and what bentonite clay can do, I was like, wait, what if we put some bentonite in there with it? And he was like, oh yeah, well, that's obviously what you do. And I was like, okay, well, missing piece of information. Bentonite is actually a product that you can buy, which this was a big selling point for the project for me. By the way, do you know how you can tell that you have pigs is basically just your pants always look like this? But bentonite clay is a product that's taken from the ground, and it's a special clay that supposedly will expand when wet. So if we put it in here and the pigs all walk around on it and in it, it will fill in all the little crevices that are creating the waypoints for water to leave the pond and hopefully just like seal it up. This is actually kind of like, I mean, as long as they're being gentle, it's fine. But if it's a no-no, we'll give them a little nose flick because we don't need to actually cannibalize the hand that feeds you here. Anyway, so basically his recommendation is go to Tractor Supply or wherever you go, get a pallet of bentonite clay bags, spread them out, and then let the pigs do their stuff. So he said 3 pigs for a summer on the spot. They've been here about a month, and this is the first time we've ever had any water in our pond in August. And I actually haven't even put the clay down yet. I wanted to train the pigs to this whole process first. Morgan, you gave me an awesome recommendation to like empty the pond and feed them in the middle after I put down the clay, and I think that's a great suggestion. So that's what we're gonna do. I would like, Morgan, the next time you visit, to be sitting out on a dock and fishing for trout in this very swamp that we're standing in.
I don't know, this doesn't look very fish worthy, but I think we're gonna have to do like a time jump and like do a sequel to this video.
Absolutely. In 2 years, you and I are gonna be sitting here fishing.
The amount of compaction that the pigs are putting to like the ground, like this is like solid. And so the idea of them being able to do it makes sense. Hippopotamuses are not directly related, but they're cousins of the pig. When you look at what hippos can do, part of what they've done throughout Africa is a lot of the lakes and rivers are in theory formed by hippopotamus. So much like the role the beaver played in North America with the evolution of our waterways, like all throughout North America, the hippopotamus actually played a similar role in Africa. And so if you really want to think about what they're doing, they're basically being mini hippos.
In addition to this pond actually holding water in August for the first time in its known history, I do have a little smaller proof of concept to this idea actually working as well, if you want to just take a jaunt over to our pet pig we inherited from our neighbor. A while back, we got a call from our neighbor asking if we would babysit his pet pig while he planted his spring garden, and she never left. So we've got Lucy. Lucy has been building herself a little pond over here for the last few weeks. And as you can see, it's holding water pretty dang good. And we didn't even put any bentonite clay in it.
Did you do all that?
She's very proud of herself.
Wow. So who would have thought you can make ponds with pigs?
This pond has been an eyesore and an unfortunate staple of our farm since we moved here. And so I've actually truly considered filling it in, except for the fact that when it, oh my God, are you okay? Like I saw it about to happen and I was like, wait, he feels it, and then he didn't feel it.
So I just had a very much near disaster that just happened there. And can you explain to everybody what just happened?
So we're filming a video about my pond, and this is actually the inlet into the pond. And as we're walking out and we're on our way up to talk about water catchment, Morgan's carrying the camera and he's backing up over this, and I thought when he put his foot here that he felt it and then he would stop walking, but he kept walking right over the edge, and I'm so glad he's okay, because I have definitely backed a car over that and it didn't go as well as Morgan's fall.
It was definitely a close call, but as you guys are well aware, I'm used to disasters. But wow, I'm super lucky that I didn't like blow out my knee or something. That would have probably been the bad thing that would have happened, more likely than anything else, but all's well that ends well.
I mean, if you need an Anfer scale for how far he just fell, here it is. Like, oh God.
Wow, that would have been the idea of actually having you get hurt while replicating the fall that I just did would have been the chef's kiss.
The most meta thing we could have possibly done on your visit here. So this has, as we've already proven, become a bit of a danger spot. Why would I not just fill that in and have that much extra room to graze my animals or whatever else? And honestly, it's because it rains here sometimes so much all at once that water has got to have somewhere to go, or it's going to spell disaster. So this is not only a resource to catch that water and put it somewhere that's actually useful, but then it also then creates a spot that has caught useful water. I want to fish this. I want to grow some aquaponics in it. I also want to have a pump that will be able to take this water, if necessary, to other places on the farm.
And so the placement, though, of the pond is kind of, and it makes sense that it's an old farm pond to begin with, because you got the top of the mountain, and like, gosh, so much, like, it looks like half your water probably runs down into this culvert and into where the pond is.
Yeah, and I've dug little swales too that will redirect specific water down into the like this path and then dump it here, which then keeps other areas of our farm dry when they may otherwise just be like completely underwater. That spot over there used to flood all the time, and now that that water has somewhere to go, it doesn't collect there, which is ideal.
I'm dying here standing out in the heat. Like, how do you deal with this? It's not even a hot day, is it?
Oh no, this is cool. This is so pleasant out. I mean, it's not pleasant is part of it, but I moved here very intentionally. This climate is what I wanted for a lot of reasons, and having now farmed in it, I definitely miss some things about my last climate. But like, I would always rather be hot than cold as a person. I, however, have learned that the sun shines almost every day here, which is the biggest draw in every regard. So knowing that the sun is also going to shine tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that, it allows me to have completely shifted my lifestyle to when it's hot and undesirable like this, I finally, for the first time in my entire life, could almost get away with working a 9-to-5 job, because I basically spend from 9 to 5 on days that are like this inside, doing inside jobs. And that's like basically the exact opposite of what I had to do in like when weather was a constant concern. The funny thing is actually, so like every part of my outfit is like an intentional choice. So like this shirt, like yes, it's uncomfortable to wear like long sleeves in the heat, but in case I'm out here at noon, I need to have something to be able to like protect my skin. And then like this comes off and I've got my tank top underneath it, and like this is what I'm gonna wear most of the rest of the time. I keep a bandana here, not because it looks cool, which it does, obviously, but also because it like, I mean, when there's sweat literally dripping in your eyes, like you have to have something to absorb the sweat.
When you think about it, for people who are like indeterminate, like when they're saying, well, where do I want to end up? Where do I want to farm? Where do I want to homestead? Like, what are the big criteria that they should be thinking about?
I mean, you should be realistic with who you are as a person, because I know a lot of people who literally would spend 20 minutes in this and never leave their house again. Moving from the northwest to the southeast, parasites. That is a constant concern. We have the perfect climate for parasites to absolutely thrive. So if you're gonna have livestock, my first experience with dead stock happened, you know, because of parasites and not really understanding how all that worked. I've learned a ton about it, and it is totally manageable. You know, a lot of people don't wanna have a microscope on their kitchen table, be doing fecal samples. My husband himself was actually pretty pissed about that one.
So I know I started this video by teasing a handful of really important questions when it comes to selecting a location for your farm or homestead. Now let me try to give you some rapid fire answers right now to those questions. Number 1, how does climate shape your farming practices? Well, climate dictates everything about your farming practices: crop choices, irrigation needs, animal housing requirements, even the rhythm and timing of your given day. The climate of where your farm or homestead is dictates nearly everything. What kind of animals thrive in different regions? It really depends as well. Animals like cattle and sheep really can thrive in colder climates like the one I live in, but they can also do just fine in Anne's climate as well. It's just about the practices that you apply to taking care of those animals that really shifts based on climate. But that said, no, I will never have flamingos at my farm because I just don't think the climate works for them. How does land cost affect your homesteading dreams? Land cost can either enable expansive operations or limit scale and diversification. Start looking with your budget clearly at the forefront of your mind, and also remember, you don't always need as much land as you might think you do. Can you farm year-round, or will you be beaten down by the seasons? Quite honestly, getting your farm operations in rhythm with the seasons will matter, if for no other reason, just to prevent burnout. And then finally, what hidden gem states offer the best of all worlds? Well, I would argue that Anne and I are in pretty good locations. Either Tennessee or Vermont are good options depending on if you want a hot climate or a cold climate, but both locations offer a good balance, 4 seasons, and relatively cheaper land costs when compared to other states in their region.
While I had a whole heck of a lot of fun hanging out at Ann's farm today, I will admit that I do miss my farm and I'm looking forward to getting back to Vermont. Because for me personally, that is what feels like home, and that feels like the perfect place to have a farm. Whether it's our moderate and lush green summers, our deep cold winters, or even our chaotic mud seasons, for me personally, there's nowhere else that I would want to call home, and there's nowhere else that I'd want to grow food and raise animals. But for a friend of mine like Ann, that is not the right place to be. Which gets to probably the main point of this video. If you are trying to figure out what's the perfect place to start a farm and what's the perfect climate to start the farm, there are so many different factors that go into play. What you really need to do is get very grounded in what do you want and what do you like, and then build an appropriate farm from there. Don't try to do it the other way around. You are only gonna drive yourself crazy. And now if you are curious though what it's like to farm in my climate in the depths of winter, you should probably check out that video right there. Thanks for watching, everybody.